Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a while. Dan VR here today talking about sort of the state of Deepwoken. It's what I do, complaining's in my blood. So, obviously Deepwoken's taken a massive nosedive when it comes to player count in the last couple days. We're sitting at like 8 or 9,000 players during the day. 2 weeks ago that would be like 15,000. Part of that is because of Runeslayer. I think Runeslayer is an exceptionally fun game. It has its problems, as do all things, but it's new and it's fresh and it's exciting, and it gives a spin on PvE, which is something that a lot of Deepwoken players really enjoy. A lot of the community is here for the PvE aspect, and they haven't really had a lot to do. So when a new game comes out, new features, new things to do, new bosses to fight, they're super into it. That's obviously why a lot of people have gone over there. There's nothing wrong with that. I do, however, find it troubling. I get just the amount of people that have almost completely stepped away from Deepwoken. It sucks how Deepwoken exists in this sort of sphere of influence where people are playing it just because there's nothing else to play, not specifically because they're passionate about it. That was the same with TypeSoul. When TypeSoul came out, the player base took a massive hit just because those games low-key are more fun. Low-key are a little more fun. Yeah, man. When it gets down to the nitty-gritty about the actual game of Deepwoken itself, it just kind of sucks right now. There are a lot of big problems facing the game. The first problem we can address is unfinished content. I know it's a joke that like the devs don't care. It feels like they don't care because, I mean, the Ceramine Hollow rework still is not out. War mode dropped incomplete, or really just shitty, and they still have not fixed it, or still have not updated it. You know, Diluvian 2.0, non-existent. Hell mode 2.0, non-existent. Gladiator drop broken, and even now that it's fixed, there's no reason to exist. Sorry if I'm fucking gross. I'm like sick. I'm always sick nowadays. I have like leukemia or something. Yeah, World Events it was unfinished, and it's really just lame. You did it once, you got all the loot, that was it. It's just, there's so much content that drops in the game woefully incomplete, or very half-baked. And like the concept can be really cool, for instance, War Mode. But then the concept just isn't fleshed out. They release the worst possible version of it, say that they'll go back and finish it later, and then they never do. It's like an Activision game, man. It's like I'm playing Call of Duty. They get you hype. You have all these expectations. The update releases and it's dog shit. And they're like, no, don't worry. We're going to update it. It's going to be super cool. And it's like, okay, yeah, maybe a year later, you've now updated the game or you've now finished the content that you promised me. And at this point, I don't care. I feel a little burned, almost betrayed a bit. Because it's like, what was the point? You know, why are you dropping content that's not done? The developers, I've noticed, are very weird about that. They have this mentality of like, we just need to get it into the game. Like, we're going to do crunch time, we're going to work super hard, just so that we can get it into the game this Friday. And it's content that nobody knew was coming, and no one was expecting. So it's like, why don't you just take the extra time to flesh it out, so that when it does come out, the player base actually enjoys it? Or, recently, why don't you make sure that it actually fucking works? Why don't you make sure the new content is something that your community can actually play? Right? You didn't leak it or anything, so we don't know that whatever you're working out's coming. It's not like we're gonna like go out and riot and play. They didn't drop Gladiator mode. What the fuck? Like, nobody knew it existed, so nobody was gonna miss it. No one was gonna be upset. Why didn't you guys take extra time to make it cooler or make it more like viable? Because why would I do Gladiator? There's no point. Any like competitive ganking or any competitive like guild fighting, you just do that in the overworld. You go up on top of the sea gate where it's flat. There's even a campfire up there, and that's just where you do it. It's far easier. It's just, there's no need. Issue number 2 on top of unfinished content is content that nobody cares about. Oh, look it, guys, we updated the sea. Who gives a fuck? Who gives a fuck? It made my game laggier somehow. Running animations. Who gives a fuck, man? Or new monster animations. New monster animations or new monster pathing sounds awesome. But actually, it just made the monsters worse. Because you can just fucking, like, they just stare at you. Like Sharkos and shit. They just look at you. They don't jump you or anything. They just fucking stand there and, like, beat their dick, dude. It sucks. There's so many things that they're adding to the game that just nobody cares about. Or the legendary weapons. I think a good part of the community has been very vocal that they don't want new legendary weapons. I can only assume that that's the, like, easiest thing to do, though, with the highest reward. That it takes them a day to make a legendary weapon, and, well, it's a legendary weapon, so people are gonna use it, and they're gonna prog and everything else. Which is, it's troubling when you look into the actual mindset behind that, of them doing, like, what can take the least amount of effort? What can I do to spend as little time as possible developing for Deepwoken and still, like, give something to the community? Which sucks, because I'd want them to work on things that they're super passionate about. Or I want them to only really do things that they care about. And they're just not. It just doesn't feel like they're doing that in a lot of ways. And then the classic issue number 3 is just broken promises. These could be 2 separate videos on their own. They might be, because Lord knows. Lord knows there's a lot to talk about. Conquest. It's a joke. It's a joke. Chat, I'm not lying. It's probably never going to come out. It's most likely in the developer's best interest to completely scrap it and just move on to Layer 3. And I think they're starting to do that. Because they've been slowly releasing content that were supposed to be Conquest rewards just as standalone weekly updates. I think that's them sort of like, okay, let's get the rewards out there. Let's kind of put some of the cool stuff into the game. And at that point, just give up on Conquest. It has no reason to exist. They tried their best. It was a very ambitious project. And unfortunately, they were out of their depth. It happens. I think they're probably going to scrap it. It's all they can do. Curse Gear. No matter how you feel about Cursed Gear, it's just a string of broken promises. They said that they weren't going to develop Cursed Gear until Conquest was finished, and then they never stopped developing on Cursed Gear. I mean, maybe Archmage did, but nobody else did. Or the people playing it. Like, nobody... It's just a whole mess. It's a whole mess. Just broken promises and lies and bullshit. World Events was such a letdown. It was one of the most anticipated updates in Deepwoken history. If you put it on a list of, like, most hype updates, you'd probably do Layer 2, then World Events. And it just failed. It's just fucking, the game's cooked, man. I don't know.